When we finally got down to something which the individual says he really wants to do, I will say to him, you do that. And forget the money. Because if you say that getting the money is the most important thing, you will spend your life completely wasting your time. You'll be doing things you don't like doing in order to go on living, that is, to go on doing things you don't like doing.
All right, Shabbat Shalom, family. All right, praise the Most High for another Shabbat, another holy feast day we're ushering in. Praise the Most High for that. All right, so while we got those hands moving, I got a question for the body. All right. So how many people in here, by a show of hands, feel like they go through spiritual battles at work? Okay. All right. All right. So that praise the Most High. So I titled this lesson today, Overcoming Your Spiritual Battles at Work. Right? And for a lot of us, we spend a whole lot of time at work, right? Sometimes many of us spend more time at work than we do the body or our family and our friends, So best believe that the adversary is going to be at our work too, right? Because, and I'm going to tell you this, work is going to be a pivotal proving ground for our own salvation. Right? Because if we spend most of our time at work, best believe we're going to go through trials and tribulations and so on and so forth, and we still have to handle those things in the spirit of Christ. All right, so we're going to touch upon some examples that I found, and to give you just a little backdrop on this lesson, I came up with this lesson because I was struggling at work in the spirit, right? How to succeed, how to do the right thing and be righteous at the same time. So I sought answers through the scriptures to kind of figure out, okay, how do I address this situation I'm going through, right? And the Most High gave me the answers, right? All right, so the sources used in this presentation, we're going to use the 1611 King James Bible with the Apocrypha in it. This is the original Bible. And we're also going to go into the Testament of the 12 Patriarchs, right? This book was found in the Dead Sea Scrolls via the Qumran Caves. And it's very similar to what we will find in Genesis chapter 49 when Jacob gave prophecy in regards to his 12 sons. But in the Testament of the 12 Patriarchs, each patriarch or each son gave prophecy and understanding to their descendants, right? How they're going to fulfill prophecy in the latter days and so on and so forth, right? Okay. So there was a book that I read like many, many moons ago, long time ago. It was called The Souls of Black Folk by W.E.B. Du Bois. Anyone familiar with this book at all? Is that what? Okay, the older folk, okay. I read it over 25 years ago, so. And when I was putting together this lesson, I remember something that I read out of this book that I thought was very, it was very good to see that it was applicable to this time, right? And it let me know that nothing is new under the sun. So I want to go into this reading here to sort of set the stage. All right, so this is on page 223 of The Souls of Black Folk.
Today, the young Negro of the South who would succeed cannot be frank and outspoken.
So he says here, today, right, the young Negro of the South. Now, I want you to think about, when it says young Negro, I want you to think about Israel in general, right? Cannot be frank and outspoken, right? Think about that in the context of your job. Keep going.
Honest and self-assertive. But rather he is daily tempted to be silent and wary. Politic and sly.
So on our jobs, many of us, we cannot be outspoken, right? We can't be ourselves, right? Sometimes it's hard to be very honest and self-assertive, right? So we tend to conceal a lot of our nature while we're at work because we got to play the game a little bit. You know what I'm saying? Keep going.
He must flatter and be pleasant.
We got to flatter people. We got to be pleasant. There's Aaron, he's such a nice, good guy. You know what I'm saying? Even if you're being insulted or disrespected or whatever the case may be, there's a fine line that we got to stay in all the time, right? Continue.
Endure petty insults with a smile.
How many people feel that at work? You got to endure petty insults with a smile, right? Continue.
Shut his eyes to wrong.
Come on.
In too many cases, he sees positive personal advantage in deception and lying.
So a lot of Israel in this land of captivity, we find personal gain in being deceptive, right? Sowing degenerative culture, for example. Right? Yeah, you can go be a rapper because you got the talent, but I'm going to tell you to sell drugs, pop pills, be a womanizer. I'm going to do all this type of things because this is what this land affords many of us to get ahead, especially Israel. Right? Continue.
His real thoughts, his real aspirations must be guarded in whispers.
So who you truly are, you got to conceal that. I can't let nobody know I'm an Israelite at work. I gotta keep that quiet, you know what I'm saying? I got fringes on, but nobody can see it, right? We gotta, we have to play this game at work, right? And what we're gonna see is that it compromises our walk, right? Continue.
He must not criticize. He must not complain. Mm-hmm. Patience, humility, and adroitness must be in these growing black youth.
So it says, you must not criticize. You must not complain. Right? First hired, last fired. Oh, no, I got that reversed. What's it say? Last hired, first fired, right? So we can't get too comfortable, right? Can't criticize, can't do this and that, right? Continue.
Adroitness must, in these growing black youth, replace impulse, manliness, and courage. With this sacrifice, there is an economic opening.
So with this sacrifice, there's an economic opening. There's personal gain that we can achieve by being this way, right? Continue.
And perhaps peace and some prosperity. Mm-hmm. Without this, there is riot, migration, or crime.
So without us staying in line, we disrupt the whole work slavery paradigm. Right? We got to be in line. Right? Keep going.
Nor is this situation peculiar to the southern United States. Mm-hmm. It is not rather the only method by which undeveloped races have gained the right to share modern culture.
So it says here that, is this not the right that we have or that we're given to be able to share modern culture, to be able to be accepted, right? Oh, he's like one of us. He's okay. Right? You get the invites to the barbecues now and so on and so forth, right? Because you've learned how to maneuver, right? A wolf or a sheep among wolves, right? Continue.
The price of culture is a lie.
But he says the price of culture is a lie. Because what happens? Lots of times when we see that personal gain and we're trying to achieve it, we have to change who we are, right? And then what happens? We end up losing who we are. And you see it, right? A lot of our brothers and sisters, where they get to certain levels in status in society, next thing you know, they marrying other races, right? Next thing you know, you don't see them around the hood no more, right? They're not putting on any events for the community, anything like that. We essentially give our gifts and our talents to these institutions that aren't established by us, right? All right, so I want to touch upon some of the prophecies, particularly here in Deuteronomy chapter 28, because it lets us know that we can identify who Israel is just by what we go through at work. Right? So let's read some of these curses here.
This is the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 28, verse 33. Mm-hmm. The fruit of thy land and all thy labors shall be a nation which thou knowest not eat up.
So it says, the fruit of thy land and all thy labor shall a nation which thou knowest not eat up. Right? So what does that mean in the context of the day? Right? That salary that you're making at work, best believe your company's probably making 10 times more off of what you're doing than what they're paying you. Right? So they eat your labor. They're eating the fruits of your labor up. Right. Continue.
And thou shalt be only oppressed and crushed always.
And you will be oppressed and crushed always. And guess what? That labor that they're eating up, that fruit, it doesn't go back to our communities. Right? It goes to their agendas, right? Continue.
So that thou shalt be mad for the sight of thine eyes, which thou shalt see.
Come on, let's jump to 48.
Verse 48. Therefore shalt thou serve thine enemies, which the Lord shall send against thee in hunger and in thirst, and in nakedness and in want of all things.
So the prophecy here is that we will serve our enemies, right? That the Most High will send against us in hunger, in thirst, in nakedness, and in want of all things. So we have to survive in this land of captivity. We got to go to our oppressors, right, for opportunity, right? Continue.
And he shall put a yoke of iron upon thy neck until he have destroyed thee. Verse 65.
Come on.
And among these nations shalt thou find no ease.
So among these nations you shall find no ease. Who's tired by the time they get to Shabbat? I know it's not just me, right? By the time we get here, as much as what we got to go through those 6 days, right? We come to Shabbat, and that's why I'm gonna tell you this, and I quote Deacon Kazar with this. He said that the Shabbat should be our similitude to the kingdom, right? It should be fellowship, worship, praise, right? Good spirits, right? But we got to go through a whole lot just to get to that Shabbat spirit, right? All right, continue.
Neither shall the sole of thy foot have rest, but the Lord shall give thee there a trembling heart.
Say that again.
But the Lord shall give thee there a trembling heart.
A trembling heart. So let me ask you, I'm going to ask y'all a question. I want y'all to be honest, all right? How many of y'all have a little bit of fear on your job? A little bit of fear. Just a little bit. Okay. I know some of y'all are self-employed, though. Some of y'all left the plantation. But I know for many of us, right, in the truth and out of the truth, we feel like we have to be in line because we fear that if we lose our job, that's it. Right? And so what are we testing? We're testing our faith. We're testing our faith, and we're going to see that, right? Is there more on that?
Con. And failing of eyes and sorrow of mind.
Con. All right, let's see more prophecy as it pertains to Israel in our current state.
It's the book of Daniel, chapter 7, verse 25. And he shall speak great words against the Most High, and shall wear out the saints of the Most High.
And shall wear out the saints of the Most High. Right, so this captivity is speaking of the Romans, right, being the fourth beast, that they will wear out the saints. Right, so we're going to be tired. And that's why when you're doing the work of the Most High, it's a labor of love. Because you got all these other commitments that you got to keep to be able to stay afloat, but you got to still do the work of the Most High, right? So read that again.
And he shall speak great words against the Most High, and shall wear out the saints of the Most High.
Come on.
And think to change times and laws. And they shall be given into his hand until a time and times and the dividing of time.
So we are here for a time, and a dividing of time. Okay, so there was an article that I found, and it's titled "The Emotional Tax Afflicting Women of Color at Work" by Julia Carpenter. Now, I want, to me, it was applicable to both men and women, right? And when we're going through these spiritual battles at work, right, it physically affects us. It affects us. We bring a lot of that stress home with us, right? So I want to go into some things that she was able to find that science is finally giving credit to, that I think is going to help in our understanding on what we're against, right? So let's start.
Many people of color carry an invisible weight at work.
Many people, I wonder how long it took them to figure this out, right? Many people of color carry an invisible weight at work, right? Continue.
The problem is particularly glaring for women. In fields dominated by white men, women of color often battle exclusion, microaggressions, and murmured insults.
Murmured insults. It says microaggressions. right? That could be like you're at the water cooler and you just want to say hi, and they just like, oh, whatever. You know what I'm saying? Like little microaggressions, right? But those things we're going to see, according to an article, actually affect us, right? Let's continue.
And it's not only a mental experience. It can exact a physical toll as well. People of color report greater difficulty sleeping because of work issues.
So a lot of us, when we're going through our battles at work, we have trouble sleeping at night. Because we thinking, oh, man, I got to go to work tomorrow. I got to battle again. I got to fight. I got to scratch for survival, right? Continue.
And according to Jennifer M. Gomez, a postdoctoral fellow at Wayne State University, stressful work conditions can exacerbate conditions like hypertension and insomnia.
So our experiences at work, it can exacerbate or expound the issues that we already have. So you go into work with a little bit of blood pressure, high blood pressure, it's going to be higher, right? You get a little bit of stress, you're going to be more stressed, right? So let's continue.
There can be a physical manifestation that we don't always think about. So instead of someone feeling depressed, they might feel very sluggish in their body.
So you'll start to feel very sluggish, but you won't attribute that to the racism that you experience. Right? You're not going to be like, man, you know, my racism's flaring up. I'm getting tired, right? You're going to be like, man, why am I, maybe I'm working too hard. Something to that effect, right? Continue.
Which you wouldn't always think, oh, that's because of that racism I'm experiencing, Gomez says. All you know is, I just don't feel good.
You just say, I don't feel good. Right? You're not attributing to the spiritual battles that you're fighting against work. And when you're suffering through racism, best believe that's a spiritual battle. That's a test. That's a trial that you're going through. Right? Continue.
Carlin Purcell battled chronic insomnia when she worked as a senior project manager in the financial industry. At the time, she thought, there's something wrong with me, but never made the connection between her sleep issues and the stresses she was experiencing at work.
All right, let's continue.
A report from Catalyst, a nonprofit examining women at work, calls this phenomenon an emotional tax.
So now they're calling this an emotional tax, right? This stress, this invisible thing that we're suffering at work via racism, right? Continue.
Defining it as the combination of feeling different from peers at work because of gender, race, or ethnicity, and the associated effects on health, well-being, and ability to thrive at work. This could happen in a hallway interaction, really thinking about how to deal with it at a meeting when your ideas might be ignored or you feel dismissed. That emotional energy that's put into preparing for that, avoiding and changing your appearance and making modifications to fit.
So avoiding and changing your appearance and making modifications to fit. Now, I'm not saying you shouldn't do those things because we have to, survive in this land, right? And we're going to touch upon, we're going to kind of switch the tone a little bit when we get later into the lesson. But we have to, if we're not in the spirit when we're doing certain things, we can easily lose sight of who we are by making these modifications, right? We lose sight of who you truly are as a person, right? Continue.
The covering that goes into that can really be emotionally taxing, says Danica Travis, Vice President of Research at Catalyst.
Now, I just thought about like people who I went to school with. I remember going to school with a brother who had long dreads, right? And as soon as he got that job in corporate America, boom, off came the dreads. I'm like, brother, didn't you do that for spiritual reasons? Like, But he chose to, listen, I want to be accepted by my peers at work. I'm just going to cut my hair, man. But these are the type of choices that we're forced to make, right? Continue.
Identifying these things as signs of an emotional tax is difficult, especially when workplace interactions run the gamut from over insults to coded comments. Physical symptoms can also vary from person to person. The thing about emotional tax is it robs you of your ability to see beyond where you are, says Purcell. At the time, I don't have the language for it, she says. I just knew I was exhausted.
So she didn't know, she couldn't couldn't put a finger on what was actually afflicting her, but she just knew that she was tired, she was exhausted, right? But it was attributed to this emotional tax of what she had to go through day by day on her job, right? All right, we setting the stage here. So we're going to go into examples given by one of our forefathers, Joseph, right? And go into how he battled in the spirit. And the physical and mental effects of racism in the workplace are real. But how are we to combat the dark spirits that seek to afflict us at our place of work? Let's examine the scriptures and our Hebrew records to learn more. All right, so for the scriptures that we're going to go into following this, I want to put you in the proper mindset. When you read Joseph, I want you to think it's you, right? When we read about the Egyptian woman, I want you to attribute that to your boss or to your coworker or to your job. All right, y'all got that? Come on. All right, so we're going to go into the Testament of Joseph, chapter 2.
This is the Testament of Joseph, chapter 2, starting at verse 3. I was cast into prison. I was beaten. I was mocked. But the Lord granted me to find mercy in the sight of the keeper of the prison.
So we should be familiar with the story how Joseph was in prison for a time, Con? All right, continue.
For the Lord doth not forsake them that fear him.
So the Most High does not forsake anyone that fears him, right? Continue.
Neither in darkness,
come on,
nor in bonds, nor in tribulations, nor in necessities.
So there's no situation where the Most High would forsake anyone if they fear the Most High and is keeping his commandments, right? Continue.
For the Most High is not put to shame as a man, nor as the Son of Man is he afraid, nor as one that is earthborn is he weak or affrighted. But in all those things doth he give protection, and in divers ways doth he comfort.
So in all things does he give protection, in divers ways does he comfort, right? Continue.
Though for a little space he departeth to try the inclination of the soul.
Say that again.
Though for a little space he departeth to try the inclination of the soul.
So there's going to be times when the Most High is going to have to depart. Right, he's going to have to depart to try you, right? Or allow the adversary to try you, right? To try the inclination of your soul. Right? Continue.
In 10 temptations, he showed me approved.
So Joseph was tested 10 times, and he was approved in each one. Right? And we're going to go into how he showed himself approved. Right? Continue.
And in all of them I endured. For endurance is a mighty charm, and patience giveth many good things.
And patience giveth many things. So the Most High does not tempt man, but when he departs, the adversary is there to serve temptation against you. We must know that gold is tried in the fire, and acceptable men in the furnace of adversity. This is where we must prove our worthiness and endure. Patience is key. But we must endure and know that the evil spirits present are seeking for you to stumble and fall, knowing that if you're lacking in faith, you won't be able to recover. Right? What do I mean by that? In the context of the lesson, right? Right? You're afraid to lose your job. Boom, guess what? You lost it. Man, now where's your faith? You want to step it up? Or you want to step it down, right? So we must have discipline to withstand such attacks and avoid perverseness, which is a breach in the spirit. All right, let's continue. So Ecclesiastes chapter 3, and a lot of us within these battles, right, we have to use wisdom. We have to know what battles to fight and what battles not to fight. Right? Some battles are worth fighting given the proper channels that there are to fight. Other ones, we just got to let it slide. Like the elder went into that whole edification on, you want to be great in the kingdom of heaven? You got to do great things. Right? As outlined by Christ. But let's read this, Ecclesiastes chapter 3.
This is Ecclesiastes chapter 3, verse 1. To everything there is a season, and a time to every purpose under the heaven.
Right? So everything there is a season. Continue.
A time to be born and a time to die, a time to plant and a time to pluck up that which is planted, a time to kill and a time to heal, a time to break down and a time to build up, a time to weep and a time to laugh, a time to mourn and a time to dance.
Jump to verse 8.
A time to love and a time to hate.
Come on.
A time of war and a time of peace.
So there's a certain time allotted for everything. So I know some of us may get a little contentious at work and we just want to battle, fight. But sometimes those battles are not for us to fight. And we're going to go into more wisdom to show us what battles we should be avoiding at work. Right? I'm trying to get y'all from Sunday to Shabbat. All right? So let's continue. So let's use wisdom. Ecclesiasticus chapter 8 in your Apocrypha. We're going to start at verse 1.
Strive not with a mighty man.
Strive not with a mighty man. Right? You ever hear that saying, your arms are too short to box with God? Right? And we're not talking about God in a sense, but strive not with a mighty man. Some people who are above you in our places of work, we're not to fight or strive with them, right? Continue.
Lest thou fall into his hands.
Come on.
Be not at variance with a rich man, lest he overweigh thee.
Come on.
For gold hath destroyed many and perverted the hearts of kings.
Meaning that if you're at odds with a rich man, they can easily bribe somebody to take you out. They're going to have the law on their side. They're going to have a lot of things at their disposal to use against you, right? So we got to use wisdom in these situations, right? Continue.
Strive not with a man that is full of tongue, and heap not wood upon his fire.
Come on.
Jest not with a rude man.
Jest not with a rude man. Come on.
Lest thy ancestors be disgraced.
Lest thy ancestors be disgraced. So who knows what the word jest means? Who knows what the word jest means? Joke around. Okay. Let's get your top. Can you go to Ephesians chapter 5 for me? And I need you to hold the Strong's definition for jest. Let's go to Ephesians chapter 5, verse 1. Right, so it says here, jest not with a rude man, lest thy ancestors be disgraced. That's a heavy, heavy wisdom scripture right there. All right, so Ephesians chapter 5, verse 1.
All right. This is the book of Ephesians, chapter 5, verse 1. Verse 4, right? Be ye therefore followers of the Most High as dear children, and walk in love as Christ also have loved us.
Come on.
And have given himself for us an offering and a sacrifice to the Most High for a sweet-smelling savor.
Come on. So he says here, be ye therefore followers of the Most High as dear children. Let's continue.
But fornication and all uncleanness or covetousness, let it not be once named among you, as becometh saints.
Okay.
Neither filthiness nor foolish talking.
Come on.
Nor jesting.
Come on.
Which are not convenient, but rather giving of thanks.
So your top, do you have the word jest written right there in the Greek?
So this is jesting in the Greek. This is Greek number 2160. Eutrapelia, which is pleasantry, humor, facetiousness, in a bad sense, scurrility, ribaldry, low jesting.
Low jesting. So jesting in essence, and I'm going to read it out of this particular Strong's here. It says, witticism in a vulgar sense, right? So being witty, like dirty jokes and things of that nature, right? Slick jokes, right? We all got those coworkers that, and I need you to go back a slide. Those coworkers that, you know, they like to talk slick, they got, you know, slick mouths, and you're not really sure whether or not you're in a righteous conversation or not. Sometimes you can kind of slip into something that's considered jesting. We're disgracing our ancestors when we do those things, right? So in our place of work, we got to keep our tongue holy, just as Paul edified us in the book of Ephesians, right? So let's jump to verse 15 in Ecclesiastes chapter 8.
Verse 13, be not surety above thy power, for if thou be surety, take care to pay it. Strive not with an angry man, and go not with him into a solitary place. For blood is as nothing in his sight, and where there is no help, he will overthrow thee.
Come on.
Verse 19, open not thine heart to every man.
Open not thine heart to every man, right? And I know I've made this mistake several times in my career, right? Just being too friendly with people and letting people know too much of your information, right? Believe it or not, when we come into this truth, you will be lucky to have one friend on your job. You'll be lucky, right? So we cannot open up thine heart to every man. We just can't do it, right? Because we're going to find out what he would do. Continue.
Lest he requite thee with a shrewd turn.
Unless he requite thee with a shrewd turn. Like, man, I never thought he would do that. He just completely turned against me, right? Right, we got to remember, this is the land of our captivity. So we must utilize wisdom at all times. Spirits at work seek to get you to lower your standards of moral conduct so that they can have reason to punish you more, even resulting in you losing your job. Some wars are worth fighting through the proper channels, others are not. There is a time and place for everything. But fearing the Most High and recognizing that you are dealing with spirits is a start for wisdom to manifest in your actions. So let's continue.
This is the testament of Joseph, chapter 3, verse 1.
Come on.
How often did the Egyptian woman threaten me with death?
So how often did your boss threaten you with losing your job? Right? How subtle was he when he threatened you? You know what? You don't come to work on a Shabbat. You know, I might need to find somebody else. Right? We go through these things, right? Continue.
How often did she give me over to punishment and then call me back and threaten me? And when I was unwilling to company with her, she said to me, thou shalt be Lord of me, and all that is in my house, if thou wilt give thyself unto me, and thou shalt be as our master.
So she was trying to seduce our forefather Joseph into more sin, right? Dealing with her, right? Continue.
But I remember the words of my father.
So this is the example that Joseph set for us, right? He remembered the words of his father. Come on.
And going into my chamber, I wept and prayed unto the Most High.
So he wept and he prayed to the Most High while he was being afflicted at his place of work. And we'll just say that even though it was in a prison, he wept and he prayed to the Most High. Continue.
And I fasted in those 7 years.
So he was in prison for 7 years and he fasted continuously, right, to battle in the spirit. Let's read.
And I appeared to the Egyptians as one living delicately, for they that fast for the Most High's sake receive beauty of face.
Pick up on that key detail there. If you fast for the Most High's sake, you receive beauty of face, right? Your countenance will become more beautiful, right? Continue.
And if my Lord were away from home, I drank no wine, nor for 3 days did I take my food, but I gave it to the poor and sick. And I sought the Most High early, and I wept for the Egyptian woman of Memphis.
So wait a minute. He said he sought the Most High early, but he wept for the Egyptian woman of Memphis. Why would he weep for someone who was oppressing him? How many of y'all have wept for your boss or your coworker that was oppressing you? It's not easy, right? Continue.
For very unceasingly did she trouble me. For also at night she came to me under pretense of visiting me. And because she had no male child, she pretended to regard me as a son. And so I prayed to the Lord, and she bare a male child. And for a time she embraced me as a son, and I knew it not, but later she sought to draw me into fornication.
Come on.
And when I perceived it, I sorrowed unto death.
So when he saw the sin that she was trying to lead him to, he sorrowed unto death. Right? Continue.
And when she had gone out, I came to myself and lamented for her many days.
So he lamented for her every day, for several days, right? Many days. So I have a question for the body. Why would he think it would be effective for him to lament to his boss, to the Egyptian woman who was oppressing him? Okay. So the Most High would show him favor. Okay. Let's continue.
Because I recognized her guile and her deceit.
So a lot of us at work, we recognize the spirits that we're up against. Man, this person got an evil spirit on. Man, but I got to deal with this person. I got to give this presentation. I got to get this from him or from her or so on and so forth, right? But we need to recognize that these people who are being utilized by the adversary at our places of work, they're sick with sin. Right? Let's continue.
And I declared unto her the words of the Most High.
Come on.
If haply she would turn from her evil lust.
If happily she would return from her evil lust. So we have to start leveraging the truth that we have in Christ. And it's my belief that when we start to strive deeper for deeper levels of empathy and compassion for our enemies, then we're going to start enabling more so the gifts of the Holy Spirit. Right? Because when Christ healed people, he was moved with compassion for them. Right? So, and we're going to touch upon that as well. Let's continue. So Joseph withstood the evil advances and attacks from the Egyptian woman with endurance and praying and fasting to the Most High, and perhaps surprisingly to us, praying for his enemy. But as Christ stated, we are to love our enemies as they are in dire need of a new heart because their acts are vain, which will lead to their destruction if they don't repent. So we have to understand that when we're going through these battles at work, these people, Israel is the apple of the Most High's eye. So anybody that reflects us, we don't have to avenge ourselves. The Most High is going to take care of that. But we shouldn't wish the type of judgment that they're destined for if they don't repent on any person. So we have to start digging deep for those levels of compassion to be able to be moved in us so we can truly be that light to the world. Right? We can't go in there fighting fire with fire like, man, I hate you, you hate me. That doesn't work. And we're going to see how Joseph was delivered from this situation, right?
This is the Testament of Joseph, chapter 8, verse 1. I declare therefore unto you, my children, that it was about the 6th hour when she departed from me, and I knelt before the Most High all day, and all the night, and about dawn I rose up, weeping.
Come on.
The while and praying for a release from her.
So he was praying for a release from his boss, this Egyptian woman. He said, man, okay, I need to get out. I need to change my situation. Right? Continue.
At last then she laid hold of my garments, forcibly dragging me to have connection with her. When therefore I saw that in her madness she was holding fast to my garment, I left it behind and fled away naked. And holding fast to the garment, she falsely accused me, and when her husband came, he cast me into prison in his house.
So her husband comes along and says, you know what? I'm going to send you into a different prison. Right? I'm gonna trust my wife. You're guilty. You got to go to a different prison. Right? Continue.
And on the morrow he scourged me and sent me into Pharaoh's prison. And when I was in bonds, the Egyptian woman was oppressed with grief.
Come on.
And she came and heard how I gave thanks unto the Most High and sang praises in the abode of darkness.
So even though he was in the abode of darkness in a different prison, he still gave thanks and praised the Most High for that. Still gave thanks, right? Continue.
And with glad voice rejoice, glorifying my power that I was delivered from the lustful desire of the Egyptian woman.
So he rejoiced and glorified the Most High because even though he went to another prison, he discovered or learned that he was delivered from this Egyptian woman, right? So how many of us, we pray to the Most High like, man, I hate going to this job. I can't take it. I can't stand my boss. I don't like my coworkers, right? Most High, please deliver me for this situation, right? Then you go to work on Monday morning, you get laid off. Next thing you know, like, man, they got me. They didn't get you, the Most High had you. That's right. Right? Because maybe his way of delivering you from your job is just to let you go. That's right. Get yourself together. Do the works of the Most High. That's what it has to be sometimes. So oftentimes when we pray for the Most High to do things in our life, he might not change it the way that we think it should be changed. You see what I'm saying? It could be you that he needs to change instead of the situation. So even though we're being afflicted at our jobs and we're going through these spiritual battles, we have to learn how to battle in the spirit. And we saw how Joseph, he prayed for his boss. He lamented for her. He fasted for her. And then he prayed to change my condition, right? So Joseph's deliverance was being sent to another prison as the Most High heard the prayers from his many fasting. Our deliverance from our workplace drama may not be what we hoped for it to be. It could be being laid off, fired, or transferred, or so on and so forth, right? So let's continue.
This is the testament of Joseph, chapter 9, verse 1. And often have she sent unto me, saying, consent to fulfill my desire, and I will release thee from thy bonds, and I will free thee from the darkness. And not even in thought did I incline unto her.
Not even in thought did he incline unto her. So, and I go back to the lesson, overcoming the mind control of animal lust, where the battleground is your mind. And every thought must be brought into the captivity of Christ. So, not even in thought. Right, you could be up against someone in your place of work, and they're challenging you, and it may even look like it's about to go down. You can't even think evil against that brother or sister. Can't do it. Right? Continue.
For the Most High loveth him who in a den of wickedness combines fasting with chastity.
So the Most High loves him or her who in a den of wickedness combines fasting and chastity. Right? So you must be chaste, you must be fasting, you must be praying, even though you're in the midst of a whole wicked generation at your place of work, right? You have to battle in the spirit by doing these things, right? Continue.
Rather than the man who in king's chambers combines luxury with license.
Now, I'm not talking about the brother or sister that's, a bartender at a strip club, right? You need to get out of there. That's the bottom line, right? So that's not the den of wickedness that I'm referring to in this particular situation, because you have a choice. You can walk out of that job, right? So we don't want to make no excuses for anything like that, right? Continue.
And if a man liveth in chastity,
come on,
and desireth also glory.
So if a man lives in chastity, but also desires glory, right? Continue.
And the Most High knoweth that it is expedient for him.
And the Most High knows it's expedient for you. Meaning that if you're giving glory by the Most High, you're not going to just go off. Right? You're going to maintain that walk in Christ. You're going to do more for the Lord, given the glory that the Most High has given you. Right? Continue.
He bestoweth this also upon me.
He will give you that. Right? So for some of us, we could be at work and we like, man, they would hate to see me in charge. Next day, you come to work Monday, we're going to promote you. You the head person in charge now. Like, man, praise the Most High. You know what I'm saying? But now you can't go around or return everything else that everybody did to you. You know what I mean? You still got to be that righteous, compassionate brother and sister in Christ, right? So the whole point is that we have to keep these commandments in work, out of work, in church, out of church, throughout our daily lives, right? Continue. So Luke 16, verse 10, it says, he that is faithful in that which is least is faithful also in much, and he that is unjust in least is also unjust in much. Also in much. So if you so faithful or show yourself to be faithful in doing the smallest thing, right, and you're doing it with dignity and honor, and people can trust you with that, the Most High will see that and be able to trust you with greater things, right? So sometimes we're kept in certain positions on our job because the Most High just doesn't seem it to be, expedient for us to be placed in those situations, right? Let's continue. And we're almost done here with Joseph. Go ahead.
This is the Testament of Joseph, chapter 10. Ye see, therefore, my children, how great things patience worketh, and prayer with fasting.
So we see through the example of our great brother Joseph, the great things that can happen through patience, prayer, and fasting. Continue.
So ye too, if ye follow after chastity and purity with patience and prayer, with fasting and humility of heart, the Most High will dwell among you, because he loveth chastity.
Because he loves chastity. Continue.
And whosoever the Most High dwelleth, even though envy or slavery or slander befalleth a man.
So it says, wheresoever the Most High dwelleth, even though envy, right, or slavery, right, what a lot of us, have to do just to get by on a daily basis, right, or slander befalls us, right? Go ahead.
The Most High who dwelleth in him for the sake of his chastity not only delivereth him from evil, but also exalted him even as me.
So he will not only deliver you from the evil speaking against you, from all the things that are done against you in your places of work to get you to trip and fall, right? He will deliver you, but you have to remain chaste. You have to remain righteous, right? Continue.
For in every way the man is lifted up, whether in deed or in word or in thought. My brethren knew how my Father loved me, and yet I did not exalt myself in my mind. Although I was a child, I had the fear of the Most High in my heart, for I knew that all things would pass away.
So he knew. So this is what keeps me in the spirit at work, right? When I'm going through a stressful moment or a stressful day or even a stressful week, right? I go back to what Joseph said here. He said, for I knew that all things would pass away. So one day, your job is not going to exist. One day, this country is not going to exist. Right? One day, this earth is not going to exist. And let's get that out of 2 Peter chapter 3. Because he said here, and yet I did not exalt myself, meaning that he maintained his humble state, right? But this is a perspective that we can have to help get us through our day. Right, 2 Peter chapter 3. We'll read, let's start at verse 5 and we'll go to 7.
This is the book of 2 Peter chapter 3, verse 5. For this they willingly are ignorant of, that by the word of the Most High the heavens were of old, and the earth standing out of the water and in the water, whereby the world that then was, being overflowed with water, perished. But the heavens and the earth, which are now by the same word, are kept in store.
Come on.
Reserved unto fire against the day of judgment and perdition of ungodly men.
So, but the heavens and the earth, which are now by the same word, are kept in store, reserved unto fire against the day of judgment. Right? So, what a perspective to get us through the day or get us through the week. Like, you know what, Lord, I know I got to go through this trial for a time, but there's going to come a time when nothing's going to matter but your works before the Most High. So you can't go to the Most High. You're not going to be thinking like, man, I forgot to do that assignment for my boss. Man, I disappointed this person, and so on and so forth. You can't worry about that. You got to keep your eye on the kingdom of heaven, right? Everything else will be added unto you. All right, let's continue.
Verse 8, but beloved, be not ignorant of this one thing, that one day is with the Lord as 1,000 years, and 1,000 years as one day.
Come on.
The Lord is not slack concerning his promise, as some men count slackness, but is long-suffering to usward, not willing that any should perish, but that all should come to repentance.
All right, stop right there. So let's go back to the text. The Testament of Joseph, we're in chapter 10.
I had the fear of the Most High in my heart.
Come on.
For I knew that all things would pass away, and I did not raise myself against them with evil intent.
So even though his brothers sold him into slavery, he did not raise himself against them with evil intent. Right? Come on.
But I honored my brethren, and out of respect for them, even when I was being sold, I refrained from telling the Ishmaelites that I was a son of Jacob, a great man and a mighty.
All right. Last chapter on Joseph.
Testament of Joseph, chapter 18. If ye also therefore walk in the commandments of the Most High, my children, he will exalt you there.
So he would exalt us if we continue to walk in the commandments of the Most High, right? Continue.
And will bless you with good things forever and ever. And if anyone seeketh to do evil unto you,
if anyone seeks to do evil unto you, in work, out of work, come on.
Do well unto him and pray for him.
And pray for him. Where have we heard this from? The Messiah, right? Come on.
And ye shall be redeemed of the Lord from all evil. For behold, ye see that out of our humility and long suffering, I took unto wife the daughter of the priest of Heliopolis. And 100 talents of gold were given me with her. And the Lord made them to serve me. And he gave me also beauty as a flower beyond the beautiful ones of Israel.
Come on.
And he preserved me unto old age in strength and in beauty, because I was like in all things to Jacob.
So he preserved Joseph unto old age in strength and in beauty, because he was like in all things to Jacob, right? So we hear scriptures like when Christ said the truth will set you free, right? What does that mean, that the truth shall set you free? What does that mean? Free from what? From sin, right? But what about when we're being oppressed and things of that nature? Was Joseph not free even though he was in prison? His spirit was free. Right, so how did he liberate his spirit? Through fasting, through prayer, by maintaining his humbleness, right? Lamenting for his enemies, praying for them, because he knew that one day everything was going to pass away. And because of that, and because of the way he conducted himself, he was exalted. He was exalted over Egypt, right? So I hope some of us got a new playbook when we go back to work on Monday, right? Praise the Most High. Because then they're going to be looking at us like, man, these are a righteous, holy people. I'm telling you. And I'll give a brief testimony of myself. I was going through a lot of stress, a lot of just oppression, I'm going to call it, straight up, on my job. And I started digging into these scriptures. I said, man, I need to start applying myself in this manner. This is how I'm going to get past of it, right? And I realized through examining myself that I allowed a spirit of fear to jump on me at my job. I was fearful. I'm like, man, I don't want to lose my job, my family, so on and so forth, right? But once I started fasting and praying for my bosses and things of that nature, next thing you know, true story, I go to work on Monday morning. My boss says, Aaron, I need to have a meeting. I'm like, all right, cool. Right, I'm coming off, I'm feeling good. The Shabbat was great. I go into the office, I sit down, and I had expressed a list of demands for my boss that he kind of laughed at before. And they literally, my boss and my director, acquiesced to every demand that I had and didn't have any reason to do so. And I just looked up and said, praise the Most High. Like, all of a sudden, temperament changed towards me. And it was due to the grace of the Most High blessing me. I said, praise the Most High. So it's like, man, I can't even teach a lesson unless I actually doing it. So that was a blessing for me. So let's continue more. Hebrews chapter 11.
It's the book of Hebrews chapter 11, verse 23.
Come on.
By faith, Moses, when he was born, was hid 3 months of his parents, because they saw he was a proper child, and they were not afraid of the king's commandment. By faith, Moses, when he was come to years, refused to be called the son of Pharaoh's daughter.
Come on.
Choosing rather to suffer affliction with the people of the Most High than to enjoy the pleasures of sin for a season.
Come on.
Esteeming the reproach of Christ greater riches than the treasures in Egypt.
So he esteemed the reproach of Christ to be greater than the treasures of Egypt. Right? So this is the mind state that we have to have. Yes, there's a pot of gold that this system can offer you, right? But we have to esteem the reproach of Christ to be far greater, right? Because a lot of us that we went into, we can compromise ourselves in this walk just to get that pot of gold. But we can't do that. We have to pick Christ and his reproach to be far greater, right? Continue.
For he had respect unto the recompense of the reward.
Come on.
By faith he forsook Egypt.
So some of us are going to have to forsake greater riches, right? You may have this desire to be this super exalted, person in whatever industry or profession. But you know that the path to get there and the world that's a part of is not really befitting of someone who is in this walk. You got to make some tough choices like that sometimes. True, you can change the game if the Most High wants you to do it. That's possible. But it also could be possible that the Most High doesn't want you to focus on that as well. Right? Continue.
Not fearing the wrath of the king, for he endured as seeing him who is invisible.
So a lot of times we cannot fear the wrath of the king or the master at our job, right? Boss, I can't work on the Shabbat. I can't do it. I got to say no. I got to draw the line here. And I can't go to that Christmas party. I know it's like an unwritten rule. Everybody has to go and everybody has to, eat the pork and the ham and all that, but I can't do it because I'm compromising my God. So we have to sometimes forsake Egypt, right? And not fear the wrath of our superiors at our place of work in order to keep these commandments and be in favor of the Most High, right? Continue.
Through faith he kept the Passover and the sprinkling of blood, lest he that destroyed the firstborn should touch them.
All right, so let's go to Luke chapter 3. Luke chapter 3.
This is the book of Luke, chapter 3, verse 12. Then came also publicans to be baptized, and said unto him, Master, what shall we do? And he said unto them, exact no more than that which is appointed you.
So there were publicans that were baptized, right? And then they came to Christ. Okay, what are we supposed to do? He said, exact no more, meaning take no more that which is appointed to you. So we still have to be people of integrity at our place of work, even if it's a lack of integrity that actually gets people by. We can't allow ourselves to be that way, right? Continue.
And the soldiers likewise demanded of him, saying,
Come on.
And what shall we do? And he said unto them, Do violence to no man.
So he told the soldiers, he didn't tell them to quit their job. But he told them, exact or do violence to no man. Continue.
Neither accuse any falsely, and be content with your wages.
And be content with your wages. Right? So when the publicans came to Christ seeking guidance after their baptism, notice that he didn't tell them to quit their jobs. He instructed them to not cause any harm or conduct any wrongdoing of any kind, and to be content with their wages. Oftentimes when we enter into our places of work, we feel that we must abide by the games in which the Gentiles have established, which are often wicked and cruel, thinking that on-the-job conduct is separate from following the Most High in Christ. We must put on Christ at all times. All right. we're going to go into a different section. I call this the power section. Right? We went through the meek section of the lesson. Now we're going to go into the power section of the lesson. Right? So I'm going to read Zephaniah chapter 2. It says, "Gather yourselves together, yea, gather together, O nation not desired." Right? And this right here is a picture of Black Wall Street, a main strip on Black Wall Street. Right? Who's familiar with what Black Wall Street was? Oh, praise the Most High. And they don't teach us that in school, right? So we got to find that out on our own. But I'm going to quote Paul in this instance, right? "Be ye separate." And we're going to go into Israel's history of operating in captivity. All right, so we're going to go into the book of Jeremiah, chapter 29.
Now these are the words of the letter that Jeremiah the prophet sent from Jerusalem unto the residue of the elders which were carried away captives, and to the priests, and to the prophets, and to all the people whom Nebuchadnezzar had carried away captive from Jerusalem to Babylon.
So we should be familiar with the story. Nebuchadnezzar burnt the temple, led the people back to Babylon, right? So this is a letter that the prophet Jeremiah wrote to the people, right? Continue.
Verse 4, "Thus saith the Lord of hosts, the power of Israel, unto all that are carried away captives, whom I have caused to be carried away from Jerusalem unto Babylon.
Come on.
Build ye houses."
He said, "Build ye houses." Right? Continue.
"And dwell in them. And plant gardens, and eat the fruit of them."
And eat the fruit of them, right? So he said, listen, you're in captivity, you're not in your homeland, but you know what? I want you to do well. I want you to do well, right? Continue.
"Take ye wives and beget sons and daughters, and take wives for your sons and give your daughters to husbands, that they may bear sons and daughters, that ye may be increased there and not diminished."
That you may be increased there in the land of your captivity and not be diminished, right? Come on.
"And seek the peace of the city whither I have caused you to be carried away captives.
Come on.
And pray unto the Most High for it, for in the peace thereof shall ye have peace."
So in the peace thereof, ye shall have peace. And like the elder went into Matthew chapter 5, when he said, agree with your adversary quickly, right? We're able to do that because we have the peace of Christ. So we have to learn how to navigate through this system that's against us and operate in that liberty of the Spirit and be at peace, right? Continue.
"For thus saith the Lord of hosts, the power of Israel, let not your prophets and your diviners that be in the midst of you deceive you, neither hearken to your dreams which ye cause to be dreamed."
Go ahead.
"For they prophesy falsely unto you in my name. I have not sent them."
Jump to verse 11.
Verse 11, "For I know the thoughts that I think toward you, saith the Lord, thoughts of peace and not of evil, to give you an expected end. Then shall ye call upon me, and ye shall go and pray unto me, and I will hearken unto you."
So even though we may be in the land of our captivity, the Most High gives instructions, right? He says, pray unto me, and I will hearken unto you. Continue.
"And ye shall seek me."
And ye or you shall seek me, come on.
"And find me, when ye shall search for me with all your heart."
With all your heart. That's the key. That's the example that we went into with Joseph, right? Continue.
"And I will be found of you, saith the Most High, and I will turn away your captivity, and I will gather you from all the nations, and from all the places whither I have driven you.
Come on.
Saith the Lord. And I will bring you again into the places whence I caused you to be carried away captive."
So he said that he would turn away our captivity. Now, for some of us, right, we may experience that in a situation of, you know what, I'm gonna break your captivity to your job, and I'm gonna give you something over here that you can just be on your own and providing for yourself, right? To someone else, it could be giving you the wisdom and the knowledge to know how to operate within your jobs, right? So you're not having that captive mind state, that you're free in the spirit, right? So I want to go into some archaeology, right? There was a article that was written called Cyrus in the Judean Diaspora by Ira Spar. And he goes into how Israel operated in their Babylonian captivity, right? And I looked at this and I said, you know what? We'll get into it. We'll get into it. Let's read it.
In 1893, a group of University of Pennsylvania archaeologists unearthed more than 700 cuneiform tablets amid the ruins of ancient Nippur.
So there was a major finding in 1893 of cuneiform tablets, right? Continue.
Dating between about 454 and 403 BC, approximately 150 years after the beginning of the exile. The documents describe the business activities of the well-to-do Marushu family of financiers.
So the Marushu family of financiers, they were Israelites that achieved a certain level of status and success and wealth in the midst of their captivity, right? Continue.
An analysis of the archive by the Israeli scholar Ran Zadok revealed around 70 Judean-type names of individuals who were engaged in various types of business activities.
So he found these records of these Judeans, these Israelites, and they were involved in a lot of different activities in the midst of their captivity. Let's read about some of them.
A few dealt with monetary affairs as business agents.
Some were business agents, come on.
Rent collectors and debtors, while most worked in agricultural as either small landowners or tenants who rented their fields.
So we own land, right? We rented our fields. Some were business agents, so on and so forth. Continue.
Others held low-level jobs as fishermen, bird keepers, or stock herders. Business documents from other sites in Babylonia describe some Judeans as holding public office, even serving as royal merchants. Others are recorded as traveling abroad on behalf of private business entrepreneurs.
Come on.
And still others have slave owners who treated their slaves in accordance with Babylonian rather than biblical law.
So some Israelites went off in terms of owning slaves and operating with them under Babylonian law, but others achieved certain levels of success in the midst of their own captivity, right? Continue.
The fact that some exiles prospered and amassed considerable wealth supports the assertion recorded in Ezra 1, 4 through 6, 2, 65 to 69, the book of Nehemiah 7, 67 to 71, that returning exiles possessed slaves and contributed silver, gold, goods, and livestock toward the rebuilding of the Jerusalem temple.
All right. Go ahead.
Cuneiform records seem to support Jeremiah's statements that urge those in captivity to develop new lives for themselves and their families.
Come on.
Similarly, the prophet Ezekiel implies that he comfortably dwelt in a Judean community in Babylonia that possessed its own leadership.
Come on.
The study of personal names indicates that Judeans were readily willing to give their children traditional Babylonian names.
So some Israelites were giving their children traditional Babylonian names, right? So some adapted a little bit to the culture that they were led to be under for a period of time. Continue.
Intermarriage, however, between native Babylonian men and foreign women was rare.
But we intermarrying with other nations at this time was still very rare, right? We kept to ourselves, right? Continue.
In some, the exiled Judeans maintained their own communities.
Say that again.
In some, the exiled Judeans maintained their own communities.
Maintain their own communities. Continue.
And identities as they became integrated into Babylonian society.
So even though our forefathers were in captivity and they integrated into Babylonian society, right, they still maintained their own communities. They kept their own identities. Right? And this is a challenge for us in this state because when we came here, we didn't know who we were. The Most High had to reveal that to us. But I'm going into these examples because I want us to know that we can achieve this today. Right? So in the midst of Israel's Babylonian captivity, many Israelites did what the Most High decreed to them to do: work, build houses, and do well. As Israel filled many social statuses within Babylon from rich to poor, it still was able to maintain its own community while integrating. As Israel continues to awaken, the institutions that we are subject to via the curses we now know contribute to our sleepy and captive state. So it is becoming increasingly important for Israel to develop our own institutions to serve the needs of awakened and unawakened Israel. But we have to start somewhere. So what do I mean by that, right? The way we can see things, the trajectory of things moving forward, right? It's going to behoove us to have our own institutions. Like, for example, let's pick on education, right? What happens when they institute laws that everyone has to be vaccinated to be a part of school? What are we going to do? We got to create our own school, like the elder said. That's right. So we have to have, and the Most High is going to put the Spirit on maybe some of you that are in this room today, or some that are watching online, to take that lead, right? To start building our own institutions. See, some of y'all thought I was going to stay on the meek part forever. Right? So this is a book called Black Labor and Black Wealth by Dr. Claude Anderson. And did I say it wrong? Black Labor, I apologize, and White Wealth. See what I was thinking when I wrote the title? Okay. By Dr. Claude Anderson, right? And he has some pretty profound things to say in regards to those, or Israel, unawakened or awakened, that may choose to integrate and assimilate into Babylonian culture, right? So I want to pick up page 197.
Integration in its present form deters blacks from establishing and maintaining a strong sense of community togetherness and peoplehood.
Now, when we see blacks, I'm referring to all Israel, right? Northern kingdom, southern kingdom, right? Continue.
It engenders abandonment of the strong cultural traditions and values of black heritage.
So integration in its present form deters Israel from establishing and maintaining a strong sense of community togetherness and peoplehood, right? Because we're going back to other people's nations or other nations' neighborhoods and communities and so on and so forth, and we lack that structure that we once had, right? Maintaining our own communities. Continue.
The process contains some of the same conditioning techniques employed in slavery. For instance, integration places blacks in a position of numerical weakness, subject to being monitored and controlled, rewarded or punished by whites.
Come on.
It forces blacks to be loyal to an identity with the dominant white society.
So this is what we talked about when we talked about the compromises that we have to face on our jobs and the emotional tax that it can have on us, right? It says it forces blacks to be loyal to and identify with the dominant white society, meaning that we have to pick up their morals, their ideals, so on and so forth, right, in order to be successful, right? Continue.
Some blacks, perhaps out of a lack of racial pride or naivety, do not see the negative results of integration in its present form.
So some don't see the negative results. They're like, man, I'm accepted. I got access to these things I never had before. I'm on the short list for the party invites and the holidays and so on and so forth. Life is good. But they don't see how it's not only affecting them, but it has a detrimental effect on their own people. Right? Continue.
And continue to pursue it regardless of how often they are rejected or exploited.
So we'll strive to be accepted by the greater culture, right? And by these other nations, no matter how many times we're rejected or exploited. Doesn't matter. Some of us are going to do that, right? So Hosea chapter 8 and 8 said that Israel is swallowed up And now shall there be among the Gentiles as a vessel wherein is no pleasure. So those who have the mindset that they just are unaware, they keep getting rejected and exploited, they're not aware of the fact that you were sent to be amongst the Gentiles, not to be like them, right? You were sent here as a punishment from the Most High, from breaking His commandments, right? So when we look at the scriptures, and I started off the chapter with gather yourselves together, O nation not desired, we need to start coming together with a nation-building mindset. But that foundation must be Christ. If it's not Christ, it's not going to last, right? All right, continue.
Racial integration is the enemy of unity because it requires the integrating group to be subsumed.
So it says racial integration is the enemy of unity because it requires the integrating group to be subsumed. Right, for us to sacrifice, to give up our calling, what we've been placed here to do is to be a light to the Gentiles, right? Not to receive their light. Continue.
Weakened and scattered as a minority in a society in which the majority rules. Mm-hmm. Mobility patterns strongly suggest that blacks are the only non-white ethnic group that aspire to integrate with the white society.
So check that out. Dr. Claude Anderson says that we are the only ethnic group that aspires to integrate with the white society. So we know we got Chinatown, right? We got Jewish communities, we got all these other communities, but hey, listen. So what about us? Exactly. So Paul commanded Israel to be ye separate. And many of us thought that assimilating and integrating into the modern Babylonian culture was our only way to sustaining ourselves. But having a nationalistic mentality with Christ as the foundation and establishing and maintaining our own communities will be pivotal in protecting our generations to come and better enabling us to follow the Most High's commandments. And that's here in America and outside of America. Now, I don't know about you, but I would love to go to an Israelite-controlled institution to earn my pay, and then Friday comes along and everybody got to go home early because of Shabbat. We got to prepare, right? I don't know about y'all, but that's what I want, right? All right, let's continue. So we're going to wrap it up. This is 1 Peter chapter 5, verse 6 through 10. And I subtitled it that we will make it through.
It's the book of 1 Peter chapter 5, verse 6. Humble yourselves, therefore, under the mighty hand of the Most High, that He may exalt you in due time.
Humble yourselves before the mighty hand of the Most High. Follow the example that our big brother Joseph gave us, right? Continue.
Casting all your care upon Him, for He cared for you.
So anything that we're frustrated with, that we're going through in our places of work, cast those cares on the Most High in Christ, right? Continue.
Be sober, be vigilant, because your adversary, the devil, as a roaring lion, walketh about, seeking whom he may devour.
And yes, as we went through, he will be at your place of work. He's going to be right outside your job. He's going to be walking with you home, right? So we have to always be mindful of that. Continue.
Whom resist steadfast in the faith, knowing that the same afflictions are accomplished in your brethren that are in the world.
All Israel, we going through the same thing. That's why I know I can speak on my issues and trial and tribulation, because I know I ain't the only one. We all going through this, right? Continue.
But the power of all grace, who have called us unto His eternal glory by Christ Hamashiach.
Come on.
After that ye have suffered a while, make ye perfect, establish, strengthen, settle you.
So after ye have suffered a little while, you're going through that trial, the similar trial that Joseph went through. He was approved by all 10, right? It will make you perfect. It will establish, it will strengthen, and it will settle you. All right? So praise the Most High. Shabbat Shalom. Thank you.
It'll be over. No more pain and suffering, it's getting closer. A higher will soon send our king to take over. Yasharala, a change is coming, just hold on. Yeshua soon show up.
Any venue or any marketplace that you enter into that they control, there's systems set up. Corporate America has a system set up. It's a reward system, a penalty system, and a value system. Corporate America says this: when you get into any corporate America job, what do you have to do? You got to read the rules in the beginning, right? So they're giving you the rules to abide by when you're inside of their marketplace. You have to speak a certain way. You have to act a certain way. Based off of contractual agreements, you're not allowed to say certain things. You're not allowed to voice. You're not allowed to be you. You can't be I am in those marketplaces because they set up a penalty system. Oh, you want to get in here and act like you God? We'll get rid of you in the marketplace.